Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Darling. I'm the mayor of the city of McAllen. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for making us move this indoors today. We needed the rain outside, and all you need is call a press conference outside, and it was guaranteed we're going to have to move inside. But I want to introduce the people up behind me today. They're the people that are really providing the work on the ground for the mission that's being conducted in McAllen over the last month and a half now. I have Josh Ramirez, who's our emergency manager on site, Kevin Pagan, who's our city attorney and the emergency manager officer, Father Larry Snyder, who's from the Catholic Charities, Sister Norma, there she is, the lady that's really doing all the work at the center and doing a great job, and Roy Rodriguez, who is our city manager, and Chief Rodriguez, who's our chief of police. And they'll be available to answer questions after I make a brief presentation. First thing I like to say is that by no means does any of this make light of the humanitarian crisis relating to the journey from Central America through Mexico to the United States. That's really something that's beyond our control, but what we're doing here is for the people that make it. We don't have any control over that process relating to why or when they leave or the journey here. And I don't want to make anything like that. It's not a serious problem for certainly all those people crossing. But what I want to talk about is what we're doing here in McAllen. Let me tell you a little story. The story is about, I guess 6 weeks ago, the city manager emailed several of us and called me and said, we're getting ready to close our bus station and we have about 40 people still here. And there's women and children, and they've been using our facilities all day, really taxing the facilities from the restroom facilities and literally cleaning up in the restroom facilities. And we're ready to close our bus station, and they don't have a place to go, and they're going to wait for the bus the next day. What should we do? And so my answer to him was, don't make it a story. And he took that, don't make it a story, to not making a story by providing. We kept the bus station open that night. We tried to provide for some services, and then the Catholic Charities came to our rescue about a day later and provided the facilities that you see now at Sacred Heart Church. And I want to mention Sacred Heart Church. They've been very helpful too. And so that's how the story started. And not making this story turned out to be, what I think in McAllen, a good story. A story of generosity of our community, a story of the dedication of Catholic Charities, Red Cross, the Salvation Army, numerous other people, local doctors, local citizens. Turned out to be a story of humanitarianism from our city to the people in need. And so that's not turning a story, turned into that story, and we're very proud of all those people in McAllen that have provided for that. We've had also a lot of help from our local government partners, Hidalgo County, City of Weslaco, City of Mission, Willacy County, the Lower Rio Grande Development Council, and also certainly our Border Patrol. We work closely with the Border Patrol. They've been helpful. You know, they're taxed in a process that they didn't anticipate or not geared up to be, and they've been very helpful from that standpoint in making sure that there's some coordination with people coming to the bus station. I also want to thank our Texas Congressional and Senatorial delegation. We've been working with them, and we're going to be seeking funds. By the way, it relates to the President's budget. We think that's very thoughtful of the President to do that with the budget. We could not find any funds for our particular operations in there, and so hopefully we'll be perusing that a little closer, and there will be funds available in that $3.4 billion to fund the process that we're doing here. McAllen is happy to do this effort, and we will continue to do so. But at the same token, I don't think it's fair for our taxpayers to bear that burden, a burden that I think should be the federal government's. I know the latest numbers that you want to hear are that we spent so far, the City of McAllen, $71,000 as of June 26th. That probably goes up about 20% since then. To go through December 31st, we'd estimate it costs about $600,000 for the city. All our governmental entities, including through the end of the year, would be about $1.5 million. So it's not a cheap process, and I know the Catholic Charities have expended great funds for that. By the way, I held this press conference today because I've I've received about 60 requests for interviews, and I don't want to be the limelight for this, and so I've turned down the request because the story was being told at Sacred Heart Church, and certainly I only have a small part in that. But I was told by our PR people at City Hall that it wasn't fair, that you guys have a job to do, and so I thought it was important to address these issues, to stop rumors that are going around, and also give you the story, the statistics of what's going to happen. So we decided to do a press conference at once. I know I've been critical of press conferences. I said the way we could fund all this is charge $5,000 a permit for press conferences. We could pay for it all year long. And so I hope you don't think me hypocritical by having a press conference, but that's the reason we're doing it. I want to say one other thing about yesterday came up, the president visited Dallas. I'm glad that the president did that and spoke to leaders. I was a little disappointed that when they talked to local government people and local charities, that they didn't have somebody from our locality here and also somebody from the local Catholic charities. But I respect that decision. Whether the president should come down or not, I respect his judgment on whether he needs to see that or he has sufficient information to do so. Kind of a silver lining, if a president does come down, it's a little disruptive to operation, and it costs local governments about $25,000 for a presidential visit because of security issues and all that. So whether the president comes down or not, certainly his decision, I would respect that, and I think he's addressing the situation. Okay, having said that, any questions?
I have a question. You said that it kind of started when they told you that there were 40 people and that the bus station was closing. I have heard that it was 2 women actually that kind of started this effort, that started gathering supplies, and that's where the Sacred Heart Church effort started. So is there like a conflict, or could you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's
variation of the story.
Yeah, all I know is that was my part. I didn't know anybody else. I know that we didn't expect people at the bus station being dropped off by the Border Patrol, and when they did, one particular day we were ready to close the station, and we had about 40 people still in the station without transportation out. I don't know that particular arrangement. If you know who those 2 women are, I want to thank them, but I'm not sure what the exact facts on that are.
Mayor Darling, the actual
Yeah, we couldn't find a specific line item, if you will, to fund the kind of operations that we're doing here, because at this point, the people are being released from federal custody, so they're technically on their own. So we're trying to go through that budget to see if there's a particular line item that we would fit under, so we could seek funding from that standpoint.
Give me 1 second, Mayor. Can you just repeat the question once you?
Oh, the question was whether or not we saw funding in the federal budget that was the $3.4 billion budget as proposed by the president to fund the effort here.
So you just pointed, that's something more submitted from the federal government, because that's happening, so you and other board members are sheltering the burden, so how did you?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. We're working with some of the congressional delegation now. You know, you see all the federal budget's about this thick, and they just don't have a line item for McAllen in it, and so we're trying to work through the budget process to see where funds would be available.
Is not having those funds preventing the city from actually spending what's necessary to cope with this, or are you guys holding back, or are you guys spending it with the hopes that money will trickle down?
Well, a lot of what we're spending is gasoline for the buses, personnel. And so those personnel aren't necessarily additional time unless it's some overtime. And so what we're trying to do is provide that personnel at the bus station in Sacred Heart Church without penalizing other functions of the city. And so we've been able to do that.
Can you repeat the amount the city spent so far? We'll have a sheet for you afterwards. I'm passing it out now.
Yeah, it's $70,000. Yes, sir.
The city of Laredo, we've been doing some making militant groups or anti-immigration groups and moving into that city. Are you afraid that that will happen to your city, and are you prepared for the case that happens here?
I think it would be unfortunate if they did. I'm not afraid. I would leave that question to the chief of police, but I have utmost confidence in our police department to be able to handle that. We don't want to make that a story one way or the other. We're trying to provide humanitarian aid to people that need it, and I think that's a Catholic Charities mission. That certainly is a McAllen mission. We don't want to be ground zero for demonstrations. We think that would be unfortunate and would not encourage it.
Governor Perry is here now, touring the area. Do you have plans to meet up with him, and what will you be talking with him?
I've been waiting for his. No, I don't. I don't expect a call from the governor. I was up in Austin and testified in front of the committee up there, and I understand. I've been in touch with the Department of Public Safety and their mission, and actually got to fly in a helicopter with him. So I understand that, and so I would be glad to meet with Governor Perry if he made the offer.
Mayor Darling, you point out this is a humanitarian crisis. The Texas National Guard has been encouraged to come down and provide humanitarian health care to these refugees in the same line of which they do annually. They come down and provide colonial care, health care under Operation Lone Star. Would you support either Governor Perry or the President of the United States to send down the Texas National Guard to provide humanitarian health care?
Well, I think when you're talking about the situation, there's two different groups. There's the unaccompanied minors, which is a completely different situation than the families that we're dealing with. Thanks to our medical community, I think we're adequately meeting all the medical needs of the people that they're seeing. And they're doing a great yeoman's job, and so I don't think we need that assistance at this time from the federal government as it relates to that. We've been in contact with Dr. Lackey from the State State Department of Health Services. He's come down, in fact, this week, and we had meetings with him. And he's looking at the two different groups, if you will, because the people that come through this facility are really only here for a relatively short time. There's no long-term commitment here, and so I think that's two different groups, and whether they need help from that standpoint, I would leave that up to the federal authorities. Well, I'll leave that up to the city manager. Our budget, our general fund budget's a little over $100 million, and so right now it's not significant, but $600,000 is a lot of money. And you know, I think we can sustain that. The question is it fair to the taxpayers, and will we get reimbursed? And so I don't think that we have a problem with sustaining that at this point. One of the things that we're concerned about is all the volunteers are doing a great job of them sustaining that effort. And but I think they get I don't want to speak for the sister, but I think they get recharged every time a group comes in and they see the help that they can provide. I think you just see the volunteers perk up, and hopefully that'll continue.
When you say that it's not fair for taxpayers to have a burden, are you insinuating that at some point it's going to have to stop if you don't get any funds from the federal government?
We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I'm confident that we'll get funds from the federal government.
Are you guys doing any planning for the long-term effect here? You know, history shows the majority of these illegal immigrants, they end up staying here in the valley.
No, I don't think history shows that, actually. If you take a look, we have very few people from Central America that are permanent residents here. And so I think if you take a look at history, the last push, if you will, came in the 80s, and people were primarily from Brazil and South America, and we found that not very many of them actually located here. They're being relocated to friends and families much north of us. I don't know what the statistics are, but I would suspect that very few of the families are staying in our area. I don't think so. I would defer to Sister on that, but one of the issues is they're with us for such a short time, sometimes hours, usually not days, a day probably. And so, you know, obviously they've gone through a terrible journey, and so getting them up healthy physically and getting them on their journey with provisions, clothes, some food to last them till they get to their point of destination is the main thrust right now. I'd have to leave that up to the medical community of whether that would be disruptive to have some mental health help for an hour or two and then get on the bus and go where you're going. I'm not sure how much that would help, but we'd have to ask them.
Do you have an opinion on the actions of Marietta, California, or like of League City, Texas, that passed a ban
All I care about is the wonderful people in McAllen, what we're doing. I can't control what they do in those other areas, and that's really up to them.
Are you asking just for the reimbursement of this money, or you want the federal government to take care of the expenses of this humanitarian relief?
We're asking to be reimbursed. You know, I think it's, as I said before, the families are released by the federal government, so I don't know as if the federal government has a specific program or they could find funding for that. So for right now, we'll continue to provide it, and hopefully there's a bucket that we get provisions for that as opposed to it being a federal government operation.
According to the breakdown of the $3.7 billion, one big part of this is for health and human services, another is for, and some of these duties are in that
Right. I had a meeting with Deputy Commissioner, I guess, Petty from HHS last week at the airport, and she is actively seeking funds for us through HHS processes. It's just a matter of really trying to find out where that fits in the budget.
You mentioned that this was taxpayer money. Do you have a justification at all to taxpayers in McAllen about why the city is spending this money on these people?
Well, you know, they're ending up at our bus station, so if we didn't provide for this, they would be staying at our bus station, needing that aid at our bus station. And so from that standpoint, we could either do something with the families at the bus station, or thank God we have the Catholic Charities helping us on the other side. And so either way, it's a situation that we're presented with, and we think this is the best process to do that. We have a lot of other help. If we were going to do it at the bus station, it would be chaos and probably cost us a lot more money that would not be as well spent as what we're doing now. Well, I never try to speak for the Chief of Police, so I'm going to ask him to answer that question. Did you hear it, Chief?
Chief.
For the people who are asking for more security along the border, it's not a political issue. But the city must be impacted in some way. Your police officers must be impacted in some way.
Let me first try to clarify a point, and that is, although McAllen's often referred to as a border community, and we have very little frontage on the actual border, so we're not impacted because of the traffic associated with this particular issue. We're not impacted thus far in the city, thus far operation-wise, as it relates to the activities that are going on right now, simply because those people that are being processed through McAllen, aided by the charities in McAllen, is basically limited to a number of hours, mostly overnight at most, in few occasions more than that, but not more than that. So we're not impacted because of the issue, and we're not impacted in direct relation to, let's say, the border frontage part of it.
I mean, two different issues as far as border security. We're talking about these families, and there's not a criminal element there, but some will argue there is a large criminal element bringing people through an unsecure border, and I would imagine for that transport beyond the border, if we're making our way to Houston or otherwise, is your agency impacted that way?
Thus far, we have not seen any impact on account of this. Now, mind you, this is not something that sprung on us overnight. So we've been seeing this for some time now. We cannot attribute any impact to from a crime standpoint to this. If we had any impact at all, it's probably on the positive side of this. And that is because we have had an influx of other agencies that have come in, for example, DPS in their operation, that they've come in to kind of basically hold the line, so to speak, because Border Patrol is so occupied right now. So that void has been filled, and because of that, still no impact for the city of McAllen.
Are you impacted at all by the political visits of people landing at the McAllen airport and touring Sacred Heart Church?
Not thus far. I think there's an impact for the city, and that's use of hotels and tax and all that kind of stuff, but beyond that, no.
Mayor's going to take 2 more questions, and then we'll do some one-on-ones afterwards.
Yes, sir.
We hear about the unaccompanied children and the women and children and so forth. But what has Border Patrol told you is happening with men overseas?
I think that's the standard process as usual for that, and so there's really 3 classifications with you: males, children, unaccompanied children, and families. And that's, I think, what the chief mentioned is part of the DPS. The money that Governor Perry did was for the DPS to come down and augment, not do Border Patrol duties, but also shore up the border from a standpoint of apprehension of the people who have criminal intent coming over.
Any more? Last one?
Yes. I didn't mean to hog the microphone, so I want to ask Father, do you want to come up and say a few words, please?
I'd be happy to. Again, my name is Father Larry Snyder. I'm with the president of Catholic Charities USA, and the person who really should be speaking is Sister Norma, who is the person who is here day in and day out. But I want to say just a couple things. And the first is to say how fortunate this community is to have a leader of Catholic Charities who is one of the most compassionate people I know, who is respected and trusted, and I think has really brought all of that to this crisis. But the other piece is to congratulate the mayor, the city leaders here, for the way in which they've responded, because what I see here is a community coming together, not only Catholic Charities, but many other groups, many other church groups, and the city working with them. Now, there are other communities that have this same crisis, and I don't see the same kind of cooperation happening. So I think citizens of this community, this says a lot about who you are, and to, again, congratulate the people that this, what is a humanitarian crisis is being dealt with in a humanitarian way. So I'm just delighted to see that happening here. Thanks.
Can you name another community or two that you don't see the same sort of level?
You know, I'd rather not, but believe me, they're there.
Sister, you want to say
Okay.
something? Sister going to say something.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the many people, families here in the community, and of course the city government, that we were able to come together as a community and as a church, because it's not just Catholics, it's every denomination, every faith community has joined together in this effort to respond to the needs of these folks that are coming to our communities and to offer a helping hand, and that's what we're doing. Thank you. Numbers have changed throughout from day one that we started to provide this help. This last couple of days, numbers have decreased somewhat, yes.
Are you still needing, obviously, because of these numbers decreasing a little? Are you doing the stockpile of donations?
You know, the donations are being coordinated by the Food Bank of the Rio Grande Valley. All donations are channeled there, and they store them and are able to help anybody that is doing this kind of effort here in the valley. It's not just coming to Sacred Heart, but it's going to Brownsville as well. And so that the donations are for that purpose. And if people continue to bring them, we don't know how long this is going to happen. So the donations are welcomed.
I want to thank you all for being here. We appreciate, for all those out-of-towners, we appreciate you staying in our hotels and everything, and hopefully you answered all your questions. Thank you very much.
Hang here.
Okay.
Roy's going to take you, whoever wants to interview you.